Okay, spoilers for Superman. 2025's James Gunn Superman. This is a spoiler video. Everything we're going to be talking about from here on out, spoilers. So, you've been warned. Alright, I've got a long list here of everything I want to cover from James Gunn's 2025 Superman. Now, these are many different things. These are all kinds of things that I think are interesting, opinions I have about characters, about plot lines, costumes, all kind of stuff. And because I wanted to be so simple in my original review, I didn't want to focus on any specific character to give anything away because certain people didn't know who was in it or what characters they were playing or what. I want to go as deep as I can in this video. I don't know how long this video is. I'm at the beginning of it now and recording it. It might be long. If it is, buckle up. I'm going to do my best to cover everything that I can remember. And big picture thoughts, I'm going to repeat this very briefly from my other video. I think this movie, Superman, is very, very good. I had a really good time with it. Everyone that I've talked to who has seen it since this came out has had a good time with it. The reviews are overwhelmingly positive. It seems like the box office is in a good place. Overall, I don't know if this is best case scenario because it could have gotten better reviews, I guess, from everybody. But besides that, this is pretty much a best case scenario for this movie. Crowd pleasing, critics like it, makes money. Let's talk about the three main characters. We'll cover them here. David Corenswet as Superman. So I think his Superman is fun. I wish we got more time as Clark. I like the conversations he's having with Lois. I love that bit when she's interviewing him and really like pressing him on the ethical dilemma of whether or not he should have intervened in Barovia. Now, we'll get to it. I think that conversation is writing checks that perhaps the rest of the movie cannot cash, but I think that debate and his defensiveness is really interesting. I like that this Superman is simple. I think the parts of Clark and Superman, say they're the same character, one character. There really was not very much Clark Kent in this movie, but that's fine. The thing I think I liked about Superman were a lot of the small moments. Like, I loved when they're fighting the kaiju, everybody's fighting the kaiju, and like, it's a big mess, and the guy and Hawk Girl are trying to like drill into its eyes or whatever, and Superman, who's just saved somebody and is standing on the ground, is like, there's gotta be a better way to do this. I loved that line. I loved that energy coming from Clark. The same way that I loved his relationship with Krypto, how he was kind of exasperated and like kind of annoyed, and I feel like he felt very human, and I think frustration is not something that I frequently associate with Superman. I think maybe that's a product of the Henry Cavill Superman, but like, Superman can do anything usually, but I think Superman having to work with other super people and that being difficult for him, I think is a very interesting challenge. So I thought that was very good. I like Corenswet a lot in interviews. I think he has a very good Superman-y energy, and he just, I don't know, yeah, I feel like he works. I like Superman talking about his parents, his Kryptonian heritage. Like, I liked watching Superman feeling betrayed, but also defensive. Like, I didn't know that the parents were doing this. And that, again, perhaps the movie's writing some checks that it might not be able to cash with that plot line. But I think his reaction to that plot line, I found really fun. And like, I think as far as a faithful version of Superman, sure, this is a faithful version of Superman. Superman's been around forever. He's been done a million different ways, but like, I think this is a very solid take on Superman. All right, Rachel Brosnahan, Lois Lane. I liked her. I enjoyed the plot that she's part of. I think the movie kind of loses track of her near the end, because obviously the end of the movie is like the town splitting in half, and like, I guess the planet potentially splitting in half. And at the same time, the Daily Planet people are trying to not, I guess, get killed in this, but also report on Lex Luthor and publish this big expose. And at the end of the movie, when Luthor, everything's falling apart for Luthor, the news switches and it's like, actually, Lex Luthor's in charge of all of this, and the Daily Planet has exclusive reporting. And in my head, I'm like, there is no way that the news stations are turning off that the city is still exploding and still splitting in half for like breaking news from Daily Planet. But, you know, these movies always have a hard time of making Lois an important part of the finale. I think this was about as good as any of them have done. Made way more sense than Amy Adams needing to be the person who, like, you know, makes the Superman machine explode or whatever happens in the end of Man of Steel. Like, the fact that she is part of that team felt way more like, what are you doing here? But like with this, it's like, yeah, you know, this is what the Daily Planet crew does. Like I said, I think this scene where Rachel Brosnahan interviews Superman, it's so interesting because it is like a, you know, inversion of the classic, like Lois interviewing Superman, but in a sexy way. And she's like kind of finding out what his powers are or whatever. But this, it's like really the most, I think, a Lois has actually interviewed a Superman, and probably in one of these movies at least, probably that's because this is the most a Superman has had anything to be interviewed about. Besides just like, who are you? Where are you from? But like, why did you do this specific thing? And I can't help but enjoy that while it's happening in the movie. Again, talk about the plot line specifically, but I really liked her. I think in my original review, it's a little cooler on her, but I think I've warmed up to her. But that's mostly because coming out of my original review, I was really hot on Lex. I was like, Nicholas Hoult Lex Luthor is incredible, and that is still true. I think that his take on Lex Luthor is great. First of all, I think it looks great. I think one thing that I noticed is, like, even though there's other actors who I like who have done good Lex Luthors, I think part of the problem is, and let's just use a certain actor, Kevin Spacey, who I think, you know, one of the better Lex Luthors. Partially, I think it's because he's bald. In real life, you put him in there, and he looks like Kevin Spacey. I think it was very smart to take an actor who is not bald, like Nicholas Hoult, and put him here so that like he is in Lex Luthor mode when you see him in this movie. I even think like just there were some images of him. You know, there's that one you kind of see where he's like looking down. This is when he's in the office and he's like kind of looking down his nose and like kind of smirking. That does feel incredibly Lex Luthor. And I loved that. I thought those touches were great. I think the idea that this Lex Luthor is doing all this stuff is fun. I think the thing that I like the most about Lex Luthor here, besides the fact that he's very smart and he's built all these crazy things, is that like he has a team of guys who are not, you know, enslaved or something, and they're not robots. They are just human beings who work for him and seem to, until Lex is going to get them all killed, be on board with this mission of destroying Superman. And I think that's fun. I like that he has a whole bunch of guys. It's interesting because Lex Luthor makes the point in this movie, like, Superman is bad. He got everything handed to him. Like, he doesn't deserve to be this really important figure. And really, I do, because I'm Lex Luthor and I work so hard, whereas he had this all handed to him. Because, okay, things Lex Luthor is doing during this movie. Pocket Dimension, planning to create Planet Watch and to, you know, prison and eventually kill Superman. Also, he's got to figure out where the Fortress of Solitude is. I guess that's like the end game, is kill Superman. I guess he doesn't seem like he wanted to do it with the Hammer of Barovia, even though it seems like he maybe could have. It doesn't seem like Superman was going to kill the Hammer of Barovia, but I guess he, you know, just knows to have it run away. And Lex stages the Hammer fight so that he can force Superman to go to his Fortress of Solitude, so that the engineer can find Fortress of Solitude, so that Lex can then go to the Fortress of Solitude and then figure out it. Like, I think Lex's plan is interesting because Lex, and this is the perfect example of a villain like this, who just has a plan. He has a goal and has a lot of different avenues he's gonna, you know, go down. But like, if part of the plan falls apart, the whole thing can keep going just in a different direction. I do think, like, in a movie that's worse and that doesn't do this right, the idea that Lex finds the recording and it happens to be incredibly useful for him feels like cheating, or it feels like, well, how did he know? That whole plan involved him turning the public against, but because this Lex Luthor has so many irons in the fire, if he's been at this for so long, eventually something was going to give and turn out to be this recording. And I think that's great. Like, I love that part of Lex. Like the way he dressed. I like the way he goes on TV and advocates against Superman. I think his interview is very fun. I also think his conversation in the war room when he's talking to the characters that I'm probably supposed to recognize, and then also Rick Flag Sr., and kind of explaining why he's got to kill Superman. I like Rick Flag Sr. in this actually a lot. I like that you have a couple of characters that are like, come on, what are we doing here? Like, he's Superman though, so I don't know, probably can't really do too much about it. And in that vein, I think it's interesting to see Lex be like, no, we have to still try to do something. Like, he broke the law. And like, yeah, Lex is going to break the law in ways that are normal and fine, but this is something that's like important and weird. So those are the big three. We like the ones we like. They were good. I'm glad. You know what I'm glad about with Lex? Oh, hi. Mortimer's here, by the way. Mortimer's here because he heard about Lex Luthor. He doesn't like Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor kidnapped everyone's favorite character, Baby Joey. Mortimer's the Baby Joey of the channel, as far as I'm concerned. And I mean that with the highest regard. Everyone loves Baby Joey. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so those are the big three. They will come up throughout the video. Let's talk about other characters. Let's talk about Daily Planet crew. First one, Jimmy Olsen. He's the best one. He's everybody's favorite in this movie. I like him a lot here. I like that he has lots of ladies. I do think Jimmy Olsen's one of those characters who's just been around forever. And like, because of that, they've done so many different things with him. I feel like he's dated Supergirl. I think he like fake married Lois Lane or something. He's done it all. I love Skylar Gisondo for this role. He's so good. He looks perfect. Love the way they dress him. Okay, here's my thing with Jimmy Olsen. This is my one Jimmy Olsen thing. I like that Jimmy Olsen is catnip for women, right? Like, I think that's fun. I think Jimmy Olsen maybe should be like a little nicer to them, but also the way that Eve Tesmacher is coming through for Jimmy Olsen in that moment, and she's asking for is, I want to spend the weekend with you, and he's still like, dude, she's doing spy stuff. You can't get her killed, bro. Like, just lie to her or something so that we can save the world in this moment. But B, just like go spend a weekend with her. I don't know, man. And I don't know. I think it's funny. I liked him. I hear he's one of the 2 characters that may get a spinoff. There's 2 characters been rumored to get a spinoff, something, maybe a show. I think it'd be smart. I think it'd be smart to do Jimmy and like the Daily Planet as like a show, mostly because like we just didn't get enough of them in this. And I think a lot of people came out of this movie going like, we should have more of these characters and like this plot line. You know, things got brought up and they got kind of dropped off. And that was one that I think a lot of people wanted more of. In that same vein, I liked Wendell Pierce as Perry White. He was fun. Like that he had the cigar. Like that he does news and stuff, and he tells people to get the hard evidence. It was good. He was good in there. Beck Bennett as Lombard. So Lombard, for people that don't know, is the obnoxious sports reporter who's kind of a jerk. And I like that he was a jerk here. It's sad that he died when that T-Sphere car thing fell off that building and he didn't have a seatbelt on. Even though it got back in the air, he didn't have a seatbelt on. He's dead. So I guess, maybe he's immortal. Maybe that's what we'll learn. Or they just thought it'd be fun. Or maybe he's the toughest guy there ever was. That's part of it. Either way, I like Beck Bennett a lot. I think the mustache was helpful. And then we got Cat Grant, played by Michaela Hoover. Fine. I don't know. She's there and is, also one of them. Then also we had Christopher McDonald, played Ron. Also fine. Those 2 guys were fine. But overall, I think between the other 3, Jimmy, Perry, and Lombard, like, that is enough. But then throw those other 2 in. But like those 3 having really strong, fun, memorable personalities was enough, I think, to sell people. But it didn't feel like maybe we'll do the Daily Planet show. It didn't feel desperate. It just feels now like a really natural thing to do with them. All right, then we got the Justice Gang. 3 members of the Justice Gang. Let's talk about them. We have Guy Gardner, main one. It seemed to be the leader. At least he thought he was the leader, even though Mr. Terrific felt like he should have been the leader. But I guess Guy Gardner, like being a Green Lantern, that's something. And like in a universe, even like this one, where there's aliens and like potentially other Green Lanterns floating around, I guess maybe a Green Lantern shows up and he's like, see, I'm kind of anointed by Space God as someone with lots of willpower and who is cool, so you should let me be in charge. Now, I don't think Hawkgirl would know any better because she's not from space, this one at least. And Mr. Terrific, I think, is smart enough to know something's up, but maybe they're just like, I don't know, I guess this is how other planets do it, so I guess we're going to let him be in charge. I think he looked great. Great hair. Nathan Fillion was perfect. Very funny. I wish, and this is something that I think, the 3 of them, Mr. Terrific had a perfect costume, and it was the Mr. Terrific costume. Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner both got Mr. Terrific costumes, but of them, and they felt not as good, and I don't, looking back, know what the point of that was. It seemed like, when we saw the pictures and like when we saw the trailers and stuff, it seemed like what they were going for was they are the corporate superheroes who have a very corporate, like logo and like very, very standard outfits they all wear to make them look like a team. I think that is what they were going for in the course of the movie. However, they didn't do that. Like the movie didn't make that clear. And if that's not the case, like, I don't think that is something that like, because I think we know like Maxwell Lord is probably bankrolling this team, but like we didn't get much of him either. I think we saw maybe a picture with him with the Justice Gang, so you're like, I guess they're part of the same thing. I guess I just wish, like, if we are not going to do that they are corporate superheroes, if it's just these are the costumes they wear, like, I think the costumes for Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl are just like kind of boring, and I thought they were purposefully boring. But now looking at it, I'm like, they could have put him in his normal costume and they could have put her in her normal costume and that would have been fine. I don't know why they all had to match Mr. Terrific, because Mr. Terrific's costume is white and black and red, and theirs were white and black and yellow and white and black and green, as if like Mr. Terrific got the red accent and they got the, it's fine. That's my main criticism of, like, I think most of the costumes this movie, well, no, that's not true. We'll get to the one other costume I really didn't like, but I think like the Superman costume, not a humongous fan of the collar. Otherwise, I think it was fine. Had all the lines and stuff, but whatever, they all have lines now. And I thought what Ultraman wore was interesting, and like other heroes, and I don't know. I think the looks of these characters was cool, but I wish we got Guy in just a classic Guy Gardner costume, because Guy Gardner has a very iconic look. He has the sleeveless kind of vest with the big collar, and I just would have liked to see him like that. And I don't think there was a reason in the text of the movie why he shouldn't have dressed the way that he seems to usually dress. And I hope that like all the lanterns don't look all the same, like they all just don't wear that outfit, because that'd be boring. They should have they have cool different outfits. I like that each lantern gets to like kind of personalize their thing. I loved the constructs that Guy Gardner used. And I'm not talking about when he flipped everybody off with the tanks. That was fun. But I like the idea that he uses a megaphone. I like the idea that he puts oven mitts on the kaiju. That was perfect. Like stuff like that is just perfect. Yeah, I said this in my video, and I'm sure everybody knew what I was talking about. I didn't want to say specifically, but like we've seen Green Lanterns, and I think there's some times in the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds where it's like, oh, that's like what a Green Lantern should be doing. But Guy Gardner is like creative in the way that a Green Lantern should be creative, and it wasn't a movie about him. So like a movie focusing on him, I feel like we could get way more stuff out of him. But like just as a side character coming in and doing some dumb thing, making a big eye, drill, was great. I like that he doesn't want to save Superman. I think a lot of the characters on his team, he would say like, I took a vow not to do this. And they would be like, you always say you took a vow. That's always your excuse for everything, but you're scared. You don't want to do stuff. Ask him what the vow is. The vow is 4 lines long, or like it's very short. It's very clearly not related to that stuff, unless there's some other vow. But I just assume in Blackest Day and Darkest Night, and that was like the vow. And that just does not have any bit where it's like, no evil shall escape my sight unless they, go cross a border into a sovereign nation, then no Green Lantern shall ever go and fight them. I think it's interesting that Superman has told all the members of the Justice Gang that he is Superman. If I had to guess, Mr. Terrific just figured it out at some point and maybe called everybody on it. It was like, hey, this is, you're this person, right? And then he was like, whatever. I'm not really getting anywhere by lying to him. But yeah, overall, I think Guy Gardner was great. I'm excited for him to show up in Lanterns. I'm not surprised. Because I'm a little surprised he's going to be in there, especially just because like that show seems like it might be more grounded than this. And I guess I'm only getting at that because of the one picture we've seen and the fact that it's by the Watchmen guys. Not that that's more grounded than this. Anyway, I liked him. Okay, Mr. Terrific, Eddie Gathegi, wonderful. Everyone loved him. I had a feeling he would come out of this movie super hot. Great costume. Great the way they did the T makeup on his face. So for people that don't know, his deal is he's the smartest man, second or third or something smartest man, on Earth. He has the T-spheres, which he can use to shoot a lot of stuff. I also believe the T on his face is nanotech, and that makes a mask that makes him undetectable to cameras. I don't know if that's true in like maybe the shows or cartoons or in the comics. Besides that, he's a decathlete, so he's in incredible shape, and dead wife. That's the only other thing I can kind of remember about him. Dead wife who was pregnant with a child at the time. So that was like his tragic backstory. I know that because I'm pretty sure it comes up in Strange Adventures, one of the many books written by Tom King that James Gunn clearly loves and seems like he wants to base some of the new DCU on. I really wouldn't be surprised. So there have been rumors that Mr. Terrific is going to get a show, which I think is possible, but I would also be really into a Strange Adventures show because Mr. Terrific is the second lead of that. Strange Adventures is a great comic, really, really, interesting, clever. I think it's 12 issues, and it'd be perfect for like a mini series, in the vein of like Lanterns. I feel like it seems like it's very similar to like Watchmen, but it's also like kind of fun and interesting. It's got a lot of the same, very political. I don't know. It's cool. Mr. Terrific and the T-spheres. The T-sphere scene was cool, where he's kicking everybody's butt with the T-spheres. Wasn't sure if he was killing them or not. Now it seems like he could have. I was kind of curious coming into the final fight, because Mr. Terrific is a guy who has technology and is a good guy. We have another character, the engineer, who has technology and is a bad guy. It kind of seemed like they were setting up this showdown where like Superman would have to fight Ultraman, Mr. Terrific would have to fight the engineer. And I think it's so funny that in that instance, she just destroys him immediately, and Mr. Terrific is not part of that fight at all. But that's fun. You know what I don't love about Mr. Terrific is his dopey Barca lounger thing, whatever he's sitting in, that he flies around in. Mr. Terrific has a spaceship. He has the T whatever we're calling it, the T-ship. Why doesn't he just fly around in that? And I get it, it's kind of bulky, but then just hold the T-spheres and fly with those. Why do you need it's just really awkward. But whatever, sure. And then, okay, so then we have Hawkgirl, the third member of this team, played by Isabel Merced. I kind of liked her. I liked her more the second time I saw it, because I think she has a really interesting energy, just like not really giving a shit, which is cool. I think it's crazy they gave her the screech the way that they did it. She was the one who, as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, oh, I know this is the thumbnail. I can see it. The thumbnail that is going to be the, Superman woke, crazy woman face thumbnail. It's the one where she's chasing the president of Barovia through the hallway and she's doing the screech. Just one really, really tight shot of her face, and it just looks, it's not a bad shot. I just like the one, the grifters are going to go all in on. I think she's fine. I'm not an enormous fan of this version of Hawkgirl. I think it's interesting that she's here. Here's the thing that's most interesting about her, I would say. This version of the character is not from space, but has kind of memories of the space Thanagarian versions of like Hawkgirl, because they all share reincarnated memories and their pasts are all very stupid. But I don't know what her, ethics are. I think it's interesting that in the end of the movie, she kills the president of Barovia, which I think is fine. But it's interesting because, Superman wouldn't do that, right? But she would. But Superman's trying to convince the Justice Gang to, help in Barovia. And I like that by the end of the movie, Superman has inspired the Justice Gang to act in this international conflict they want to stay out of. But at the end of the day, I'm like, well, does Superman know you killed that guy? He seemed like he'd be kind of bummed that you did that. Again, it's part of the not fully, I feel like knowing how to cash that check. And I will say with Hawkgirl, I wouldn't be surprised if they do an authority, if she ends up on the authority in the position of the Hawk person on that team, Swift, and just takes that role, because that's what Swift would do. And I'm not saying it's not what Hawkgirl would do either, but if we're gonna do an authority, well, we'll talk about it. But the authority is like a super team where they go and actively run the world, because they're somebody has to do this, and we're supposed to be these government sanctioned teams with screw it, let's just do our own one of those. That seems like what she would do. The Justice Gang, by the way. So they work out of the Hall of Justice, which had a mural on the top of it, which I did not get a great look at, except you could see Wildcat. I feel like he's really clear. And I think there's supposed to be a flash there, one of the older flashes. It's very interesting that this is a world with a Justice Society in it at some point. They say in the intro, 300 years ago, superheroes showed up, which was interesting. Metahumans, I guess. But we don't get an indication of what that is like. And I don't need a bit where someone says here's all the metahumans we already have, and then here's some we kind of, maybe we don't really know if there's an Aquaman, but we think maybe there is, and just going through a list of them. But I would like to know, I hope maybe Lanterns gives us a better sense of what the history of the JSA was, because looking at the projects coming up, I mean, maybe Peacemaker could do it, but there aren't a ton that seem like they'd be the obvious in there. And Alan Scott, I feel is a Green Lantern, and he is traditionally in the Justice Society, so if you wanted to have him be part of it, that would be cool. So this Justice Society seems to be the Justice League. They have the Hall of Justice, and they're not bad guys. They're kind of corporate run, but not in a fully bad way. Just in a we need to get some money way, which is weird, because Mr. Terrific is an inventor and super genius. So I'm not saying he should be able to bankroll this team, but he has his own plane. So why can't he bankroll this team? I guess my question is this team going to eventually become the Justice League? Or is this going to kind of fizzle out, but then Superman and Batman are going to meet and they're going, we should do something like what those guys were doing, but not quite that. Because I don't see what the obvious next step is. Whereas with Marvel, I'm not saying this all has to be the same, but you could see how we were going to get an Avengers by the end of phase 1. Whereas with this, I'm I do think by the end of whatever chapter 1, we'll have a Justice League, but it's I just don't, is this them? And maybe, I don't know, we'll see. Let's talk about Metamorpho now that we're here. It'll be the last thing I talk about in this little stretch of the video before I take a little break. Okay, Anthony Carrigan playing Rex Mason, aka Metamorpho. He was the person that in my original videos, when I was talking about casting, I said I am not thrilled about this one. Only because I don't think Anthony Carrigan feels like Metamorpho. Having seen the movie, I still think that's true. I don't think we got very much of Metamorpho in the movie. Definitely not enough lines and like personality to really even get a sense for like who this guy is, besides doesn't want to see people killed and loves Baby Joey, which, hey, you know, I love Baby Joey too. Baby Joey's wonderful. But for people that don't know, as I do think the other 3 members of the Justice Gang do feel like, yeah, it's pretty much what that guy's like in the comics. Metamorpho, Rex Mason, to me, and I haven't read every comic he's ever been in, he's another one that's been around forever. I read him as, and this is very clear to me now because of the Terrifics, which is the team that Mr. Terrific starts, which I think should be the spinoff of this. He's the Thing. He is a rough and tumble action man in the vein of like an Indiana Jones who gets exposed to something, I want to say the orb of something, and it gives him Metamorpho powers, and then he becomes a rock monster. And he's got the same thing with the Thing. We're like, oh my god, but I'm a rock monster, but I used to be cool. What am I now? I'm a monster. And he has this human girlfriend who like still loves him, but like they have trouble. And then there's all kinds of stuff with their dad who runs the company and whatever. But that's Metamorpho. That's Rex Mason. I'm not saying Anthony Kerrigan cannot play any character. I'm just saying he's not an Indiana Jones type. That's just me. I think if Anthony Kerrigan got cast as the Thing in the Marvel movie, a lot of us would go, what? And I think that's the reaction I had to Metamorpho, that casting. Now, I think the look of him was all over the place. In the last scene when he fights, looks great. So cool. Perfect. I'm still not convinced that this is good casting. I really don't know. I like Anthony Kerrigan. I do. But like, he just does not feel like this character to me. And like, can he change? Can this be Metamorpho? Like, how important is it that he is, you know, an action hero guy instead of just, you know, some other guy? I don't know. I guess it's not that important, but also, what's the point of any of it then? Why, what's the point of being faithful? Like, and I guess it's interesting now because we have the Thing. So like, if this was a world where there was no good version of the Thing, I'd go, well, this is kind of as close as we're gonna get, man. We got a Metamorpho. But now it's like, I guess maybe we don't need that version of Metamorpho anymore. But then what is this version of Metamorpho besides Anthony Kerrigan? I don't know. Dad of Baby Joey. Also, Baby Joey, for people that read the comics, I feel like this Thing looks strange. I love it. I love Baby Joey more than you could possibly imagine. But I don't think he looks that strange in the books. If I remember correctly, he looks like a little alien in this. And it's great. It's really, really great. I believe also Baby Joey has Element Man powers where he can like turn things into other things. He basically do what Firestorm can do, where he can just see a thing and turn it into a different thing. Maybe that'll be a plotline they'll follow. I don't know. All I'm saying is, part of me was like, am I going to be convinced that he's the perfect Metamorpho? And the answer is still, I'm not really. I don't think he's the worst Metamorpho ever, but just based on the version of Metamorpho I'm familiar with, the one that you can see in the cartoons. He was in the, you know, Justice League show or whatever. He was also a player in, I believe they did Outsiders in one of the Young Justices, and you could see him there. That's kind of what he feels like to me, and I don't love this. I also think making him practical, fine, but on one hand, I get it. People love practical. It's so attractive in movie circles to say practical. We did this all practically. Like with the Thing. Like the Thing in the new Fantastic Four movie looks perfect. And he's not practical. There's no real practical Thing guy. And I think the problem here that you run into with Metamorpho is he is not practical when he is just a floating head and a bunch of gas or goo or whatever. And at that point, I'm kind of like, just don't bother with any of it. Don't make him practical at all. Just make it like a CGI thing. And maybe that's more expensive, and that's part of it. You know, don't want to balloon the budget. But I would imagine for Anthony Kerrigan's sake, putting on all that makeup's a lot of work, and it seems like it's probably pretty grueling. I guess in these situations, the more I hear about how tedious the makeup process is, the more I'm like, just do it with CGI and make it look good. Like, use wonderful technology, because also then when he goes from being like a floating head to a guy, it'll look more natural, I guess. I don't know. Also, at one point, he like turns his body. Okay, so like Metamorpho seems like he is not a known figure, right? Superman doesn't know who he is. Lex has to introduce himself to him, and Superman does seem like he's somewhat aware of the other metahumans on Earth. So you kind of go, well, does Metamorpho know how to use his superpowers? Like, he could turn into a gas, or he can kind of fly. He can make a sun, but he has to do it by like making the elements one by one. Like, what I'm getting from this Metamorpho is he has not been metamorphoing forever. However, in this movie, in the fight scene in the black hole thingy, he turns his body into a rocket and then just flies around. And like, that doesn't even feel like something Metamorpho can, I mean, I'm sure he can do it, but like, that feels like something that maybe like a Plastic Man would do. Or I don't know. I don't know. I'm never going to be happy with this version of Metamorpho, but he brought us Baby Joey, and that's great. Overall, you know, we'll get to the character that I think fully got assassinated in the writing process here. But overall, my Metamorpho, and he's not my favorite character, so, you know, who gives a shit? I don't know. Like, if they did this to Guy Gardner, I'd be furious. But they did it to Metamorpho, so who cares? And, you know, Anthony Carrigan seems nice. Glad he got paid. All good. All right. It's the next day. We're going to talk about more Superman stuff. We're going to start with the bad guys. You talked about all the good guys. Let's talk about the bad guys, because this group is interesting. Now, we've already covered Lex, obviously. Let's talk about the president of Barovia, or whoever that is. So this guy, people may recognize him from the movie Triangle of Sadness. I don't know if this character has been in anything historically. I believe the country Barovia has been in comics before some bit. I do think it's interesting, having seen Creature Commandos, that we are 2 things into the new DCU. We've already done 2 fictional, I'm going to say Eastern European nations. I guess 3, if you count the one they're going to war with here. But like Barovia and Polkolistan are both made up. They both have a dictator or prime minister who is some sort of villain. I can't even remember exactly what the Creature Commandos one's deal was. I think they wanted to like use Gorilla Grodd and their military to kill all the superheroes, so that was something, I guess. But it's interesting that they've already done this twice. I think the guy playing the president of Barovia, amazing. Such a weird dude. As far as that character's role in the story, I kind of wish he was not as directly involved with Luthor. Or if he was, I wish this was something that was not designed to bug Superman and get Superman involved. That's something Lex will say later. It wasn't like, oh, this whole thing was so I could get this land. I did all of this geopolitical conflict so I could make you angry and I could kill you. That, I think, is interesting as like a plot point. I like that Lex is doing that many crazy things just because he hates Superman that much. I kind of wish the Barovia incident wasn't part of Lex's plan as explicitly, only because it feels like it sort of cheapens the conversation that Clark is having with Lois about whether he should intervene in world events. Specifically because, like, that is a really interesting Superman question. I genuinely don't know the answer to that. Should Superman stop wars? Is it a yes or no? Like, should he just not stop wars? Do you have to draw that line if you're Superman? Because it's like, well, otherwise I'd have to stop all the wars, and then I have to pick who's on the right side. And like, yeah, maybe this specific war is very one-sided, but other wars will be maybe a little bit less one-sided. But then when do I get involved with that? And that's something I think different Superman movies have done different things with. Like, the purpose of Superman is to inspire people, to show them a better way, to guide them. But like, Superman directly intervening in a war he believes is unjust, and specifically what is going to be a slaughter of civilians, like, I think it gives it a very clean ending if like the obvious right answer was to do that, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because Luthor planned it so that Superman would get involved. So if anything, the right answer would be to not get involved, I guess, but Superman can't do that. That would have screwed up Luthor's plans a little bit, but then those people still would have died. But like, if this event is separate from Luthor, and this is just an event that Superman has to decide whether he can get involved with, I think that makes it more interesting, more morally complicated. And I like that the Justice Gang gets involved. I think it's a little weird that Hawkgirl kills the president or prime minister of Barovia, because that doesn't seem like something Superman would do, and Superman doesn't seem like he finds that out. I think that's interesting, but it, again, muddies this conflict. He goes from being a bad guy to a bad guy. He goes from being like a guy who is, you know, involved in a war that is unjust and is going to get people killed, to a supervillain, an accomplice of a supervillain. And like, accomplices of supervillains in the end of superhero movies, they frequently get killed, and that's okay. But the prime minister of a country that's doing something unjust, it's a little weird if they're killed, right? But I think Hawkgirl killing him in that moment, and us, the audience, really supposed to be like, cool, hell yeah. And I agree, sure. But also, I think that makes the more interesting conflict that Lois and Clark are talking about in the beginning of the movie, like, it gives it a lot more distance from that conflict. It's also weird because of another character we'll just talk about her next, because she's one of the villains, the engineer, Angie Spica. This is a character that I believe in many ways was not represented particularly well in this movie. Now, the caveat here is they have no reason to be in this movie. They are not a Superman villain. they don't fill a really unique role that only they could. Like, there's other people that use nanotechnology, that use a lot of like robotics and things like that. If you need someone that can fight Superman, they could also hack into a system. There's plenty of characters that can do that. She is clearly here because one of the plans in chapter 1 of the Gods and Monsters new DCU was to have an Authority movie. Something that now feels like it's less certainly going to happen, only because like I think the movie maybe got stalled a little bit. But either way, like, that is the plan, and that is why she's here. She only exists in those stories. Like, the Engineer was not a character who has crossed over. There are members of the Authority who, and this was like a Wildstorm supergroup, so these were, you know, their own universe. It eventually kind of merged with DC. Some of the characters, Midnighter and Apollo, have crossed over fully into DC Comics. Other characters like Jenny Sparks, she just got a story in current DC Comics. But the deal with the Authority originally was this was a world where superheroes were, you know, controlled by the government or controlled by the evil Nick Fury of that universe. And you need to get authorization from world governments to do superheroing. And these are the superheroes that went, you know what, screw it. We're just going to do it anyway. And it's like, do they have the authority? They are the authority to do this. And there's a bunch of them, like they have their own Superman, they have their own Doctor Strange, and then they have the Engineer. This team eventually, what they're most famous for is taking over the government. And this is after the government really messes up a supervillain thing and like almost gets everybody killed. They're like, listen, we're in charge, because if we let you keep doing this, it's going to be a catastrophe. So they like immediately topple the American government and install themselves as the leaders. And I would say, compared to something like, I guess, The Boys, or other stories where this has happened, I'd say Invincible kind of has shades of this. Not that this happens exactly in Invincible, but when the Authority does it, they are far more morally gray than when Homelander does it, because like they genuinely think they have to do this, and they are not supervillains. They are severe. They do murders, and there's moments where you can tell that they are kind of messed up, but it's not the same as Homelander, I guess is what I'm saying. This comic is more nuanced. Anyway, so Angie Spica is the Engineer. She is an inventor who gets nanites and puts them into her blood. So she replaces her blood with nanites, which means she can take these nanites out of her body at any time, and they cover her skin. She has liquid metal. She almost looks like a Silver Surfer, but if they were a woman, what would that even look like? Well, this. And she can use those to create any constructs she wants, any machines. She can hack. She can do all kinds of fancy stuff. She's basically like the god of technology. So a couple of big differences here. Number one, she's nice. She's like the friendly member of the Authority. She's the one who you would send out to like interface with the public, or the one who, like, if another superhero shows up, she's the one who they're like, go talk to him, Angie. You're more likable than any of the rest of us. She's not perfect, but I don't think they got that part of her here. Sure, she has an incredibly simple design that is, you know, relatively iconic. Like I said, it's not unlike other characters. In this movie, Angie gets some sort of like leather body suit thing that I guess is made of nanites. Her whole body seems to be made of nanites because she does that weird flip. But I think out of everybody, and I said, like, I didn't love the Justice Gang costume because they were all kind of like Mr. Terrific, and I feel like they lost some of the flavor of Guy Gardner there. But the Engineer, I feel like, lost all of it. Like, the Engineer should look cooler than this. And maybe this is Proto-Engineer, and she's going to look cooler in the future. Sure, but like, I feel like out of everybody, this is the only costume that does not look like it's on the same level as the rest of them. So I think those two things, not really getting her personality, not really getting the look of her, I do think they kind of got her powers right. But I don't know. This felt like such a bizarre choice. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out the Authority movie is canceled. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Warner Brothers goes, you know, we were going to make an Authority movie and we had this whole plan, but like, screw that. Let's make another Wonder Woman movie or something. Let's try to make a lot of money instead of like taking some wild bets on characters that might not work. That seems like something they would do. So I do think in the future, it is going to feel really weird that the Engineer was here at all, because she has no connection to Superman. And if the Authority movie doesn't happen, you're like, why did they even bother with her at all? I didn't think the performance was bad or anything. I don't know. I just think, like, out of everybody, this is the character that was the least like the version from the comics. And I think the version from the comics is interesting in some ways that this version was not. Looks cooler, has a different, you know, vibe that I think like maybe would have made this version more interesting, but I don't know, whatever. That's just me. Nobody read the Authority comics. Like, some people did, I guess, but they're not like anywhere near even characters like Metamorpho, who like I think people do have more of an attachment to. So like, I'm not surprised that they took a lot of liberties with the Engineer, but as someone who does know who they are, it's weird that they did this. The other villain, Ultraman. Okay, so this is interesting. People that don't know, Ultraman is a name given to an evil version of Superman from Earth 3, which is the Earth where the crime syndicate is taken over. And the Superman of that Earth is named Ultraman, and he is bad. He's a bad guy who does crime. Sometimes he like crosses over to our Earth, and then, you know, that's a problem because then you got Ultraman. Now, I remember when this character popped up, and we were like, oh, who's this? It's like, this guy got a big U on his chest. Is that Ultraman? Some people thought it might be a character called Ulysses, and he had a big mask on, so we were like, oh, who are they hiding under there? And since it's the first movie, you're like, well, there's no other characters it could be. I mean, I guess it could be like Frankenstein or something, Creature Commando. But like, if this is the character that's going to fight Superman, it's probably Superman under there. There were some other characters I think people suggested. Some people thought it was going to be Henry Cavill, which I thought was so funny, because it would mean nothing in the context of the movie. It's kind of like the Khan reveal, where it would be like, who's that? But also, I just don't think he'd do it. And then the other one that I heard, people thought it might be Apollo. That would be cool. If it were Apollo, who is the Superman from the Authority, and this was Luthor had just created that, and like, you'd be like, oh, this is, you could see how that's going to come up in the future. I think that'd be kind of compelling. I like what they did here better. But Luthor is just cloned a version of Superman that he finds dumb. He controls it with computer inputs. I am a little surprised they didn't actually call him Bizarro, because I think that's the closest thing to what this character is. A clone of Superman made by Lex Luthor, who, as Lex Luthor describes, is kind of dim, who ends up getting kicked into the black hole so we could come back. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's what this ends up being. I was surprised he has his little fight controls, and like Luthor, you know, puts in all these different combinations of letters and numbers. I was really expecting, as things went on, a B0 combination or 0B or something. I expected it to maybe be like the last thing that Luthor is yelling at this thing, like 0B, 0B, 0. So then it become Bizarro, and that would be, I'm not saying that's how they should have done it. I'm just saying when it was a numbers and letters thing, I was like, oh, is that maybe how they're going to get to Bizarro? Because it's a weird word to say, and it'd be weird for Luthor to call his clone that. Overall, I think the design of Ultraman was fine. You know, he also had like a doomsday-ness to him, especially the mask. Kind of looked like when Doomsday shows up on Earth for the first time, and he's wearing like a face mask. I think this is one of the weaker parts of the movie. I liked it more when he was the Hammer of Bravia, honestly. But like the fight between Superman and Ultraman, I don't really have strong feelings about. I do think the best action scene in the movie is the kaiju, because it's just everybody doing a lot of cool stuff. I guess the best action scene is probably Mr. Terrific, but the best Superman action scene is the kaiju fight. I loved how Luthor put a microphone in Ultraman so he could just yell at Superman while he was fighting him. And I love that when Luthor's fighting Superman, he's still writing down the numbers and showing them to people, because he is having this conversation at the same time still having this fight in his head. That's cool. It's super funny how Eve Tesmacher is like, Ultraman, you did so good, you're a good boy. Like, do they all know he's like a baby? Does he have baby intelligence, or what's going on with that? I remember when there were rumors that Ultraman would secretly be the villain here, and James Gunn, who goes online all the time to quash the rumors, something that I think he has to stop doing, because sometimes a rumor will come up and will say, is Batman going to secretly be in this movie? And James Gunn will say, absolutely not. Batman's not in this movie. And then someone will say, hey, is Ultraman in this movie? Is he a clone of Superman? And James Gunn will say, Lex Luthor's the villain of the movie. He's the main villain of the movie. And it's like, oh, okay. So I guess because he did say no, that maybe that's true. And I mean, we can stop talking about it. I think that would also be great. But for James Gunn, I feel like if you ever, you know, I don't know, it's just like, why bother? Why put yourself through it? Hammer Bravia costume, cool. I liked it. I think it was an interesting costume. And it was cool that they did this. I like that Superman has to fight villains he's never even heard of. And like the Hammer Bravia shows up, everybody's like, I guess that's a new guy. The fact that Lex Luthor created a clone of Superman, gave that an identity, and then used that to make a fake supervillain from a country to, again, make a consequence for why Superman shouldn't be doing this, but like it's a fake consequence. This is why I feel like the morality is a little bit muddled. It's like there is something too. If Superman attacks another country, if they have a superhero, they might come attack us, and it's like, oh, maybe he doesn't get involved in things like for that reason. But it's like they don't have a superhero. They have Lex Luthor sending a fake superhero to mess with us. The kaiju looked cool. I think this was the best action scene in the movie, mostly because like I think You know, you had everything. You had breathing fire from the kaiju. You had flying. You had Superman saving people. You had the Justice Gang coming in and trying to figure out a way to fight it. At the same time, Superman trying to manage that situation. I think that ended up being what a lot of the trailers were. And I understand why, because it looked great. Dimensional Imp, weird. Funny that I love that scene, by the way, the scene with the Dimensional Imp where Superman's talking to Lois and just the Justice Gang is having a big fight with this thing and Superman's like, they got it covered. People said maybe that's Mixie Spitlick. I mean, I guess, because he's an imp from another dimension, but like probably not, because Mixie Spitlick looks like, you know, a little guy, and that's a big giant monster thing. I was convinced that was Solaris, and that was the end of All-Star Superman. Like, it's funny how that seemed like such an important part of the trailers, and it was the first image we saw with Superman, you know, suiting up for a big fight, and it turned out that was nothing. It was just like a little throwaway line, but I like that. I think that's clever. We have the Raptors. So Lex has a bunch of goons that want to kill Superman. I think this is fun. I am glad Lex didn't get in one of those suits. I think he probably will eventually, but I'm okay with them not doing that yet. I like that the Raptors have Lex Luthor's purple and green color scheme. Like, that's something Lex has already decided on. Apparently Michael Rosenbaum was the voice of one of them, but I didn't catch that. Let's talk about Eve Tesmacher and Lex Luthor's goons. Amazing. All of his goons were so funny. They had such specific looks. A lot of them were based off of characters from the movies or from older comics, I guess. But I love that this version of Lex has a team of guys who seem to just be on board with killing Superman because they want to do that too. I do think one thing about this movie that I also kind of, again, checks that maybe can't cash. In the beginning of the movie, Lex and Lois are arguing about Superman being a public figure who has negative attention online. There's apparently trending hashtags. Superman sucks. I can't remember what they were. Super shit is like the last one. But like that, specifically we find out, is something that Lex has an army of monkeys that he has trained to write mean things about Superman on the internet. So, again, I feel like because Lex is doing this, it seems like the public perception of Superman throughout pretty much this whole movie is like, he's a good guy, everybody likes him. Until the one moment where they turn on him a little bit for the parent stuff. When they find out that Jor-El told him to create a harem, like people throw stuff at Superman, yell at Superman. I do think, like, for Lois to say, Superman, you made a decision that's divisive, is like a divisive figure, besides Lex saying that he believes it's divisive, and like people being like, I don't know, man, it's weird that Superman did that. It does feel like everyone's pretty much on Superman's side. And by the end of the movie, it's like he's totally beloved. Like when he saves everybody from the kaiju, there aren't people throwing things at him then and being like, you shouldn't have done that in Baravia. So I don't know. I wish the movie would have played with that more, or just don't do that part. And I don't want a movie right now where Superman is a public figure that people have it, because that's what the Snyder movies were. That's what Batman v Superman was. It's like, should they reuse Superman? There are court hearings about Superman. I think that's interesting, but for a while, I'd just like him to be Superman. I'd like people to be like, Superman, cool. Hey, look, it's him. Yay, take a picture. But like the way that they set it up as like the online audience is really mad at him. It's like, but the online audience, much like the Baravia president, turns out that's actually something Luthor invented, and people, you know, do seem to genuinely like Superman, even if he did this other thing. I don't know. It's a choice I'm not an enormous fan of. Like, I think Lex Luthor doesn't need to manufacture. Lex Luthor can trick the public into, like, the Hammer Barovia thing. That's Lex Luthor turning public opinion on Superman. And we can see that happen in real time. But Lex doesn't need an army of monkeys because he's got us. They got people that would see that on the news and go, oh, it's Lex Luthor. He's probably right. Superman sucks. And write that on Twitter. So you don't need the monkeys. I think it's a funny, visual. Eve Tesmacher, by the way, played by Sarah Sampaio. Great. Super weird. Bizarre energy. I think she was very funny, and I like that. I like that character plays a big role in the end of the movie. Like, I like the idea that characters turn on Lex. I wish maybe, just maybe, Clark could inspire some other character to do that. This is probably the job for the engineer, I guess, maybe. If by the end of the movie, Clark had inspired the engineer to not be bad, to be good. Because he inspires the Justice Gang, heroes that are inactive, to take action. But I think he should inspire at least one villain. And I think Tesmacher, while kind of inspired because Lex is insane, is more like she just wants, to get closer to Jimmy. Fortress of Solitude looked amazing. Loved the machinery. Thought it was very fun. Enjoyed running through it in Fortnite. question about the Fortress of Solitude. This is something that I just was wondering. So I genuinely don't know the answer to this. I'd be curious what people say. The Fortress of Solitude, as far as I can remember, created by Superman. Maybe this is just in Smallville. I don't know where I'm getting this from. But like he throws like a crystal in and it makes a big crystal fortress. And he's like, oh man, this is my new Fortress of Solitude. This little Superman zone. That is something that came with him from Krypton. I am fine with that. I like that. Because it has a very alien aesthetic. But also it's not like fully built out. It feels like something that he has to kind of fashion into a home. I like that it has a door that only he can open. I feel like in the past, the way that this has happened and the way that Lex has done it is there's a really heavy key that only Superman can pick up and put. And so like someone at certain points, like I guess in this movie, like Ultraman would just be able to pick up the key, but the way they did it is fine. So all the stuff in the Fortress of Solitude, like the machine, the computer, that I assume came with Superman. The robots, though, he calls them Superman robots. There is a small army, 10, maybe 20 robots that are built and they have personalities and they seem to have their own intelligence. They at least approximate it. Who made those? Did those come from Krypton? Why does he call them Superman robots if they're from Krypton? Wouldn't he call them Kryptonian robots or something like that? And the reason that I think it's weird is because All-Star Superman, the book that a lot of this is from, that has the Superman robots, and they serve almost the exact same function. But I feel like they're different because in that book, they are created by Superman, but Superman is a genius who is at the end of his life. And that's the story there. It's like a Superman who could kind of do anything. With this, I'm like, did this Superman build those robots over the course of whatever 3 years? Did he find them somewhere? Like, where did they come from? In a story where Superman is young, it feels a little weird that he has them. I'm not trying to poke holes in the logic of it. I guess I'm just wondering, like, genuinely, where in this universe are we supposed to think they came from? Did they come with him from Krypton? Because, like, if the robots came from Krypton, they would know what the recording says. So I don't think they did. In fact, they're building the robots now because Superman robot, the one that gets a name, he says that one of the other ones is new. So I imagine she was just built. I mean, maybe the answer to that is Superman's parents sent him with a robot building machine. I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Just a question I had. Krypto in this movie, I think Krypto was fine. Fair amount of him. I like that Krypto's a bad dog, and it's described by the characters in the movie as a bad dog because he is poorly trained. But like, as someone who, obviously I'm a cat person. Mortimer is around here all the time. I don't dislike dogs, but I do feel like different dogs are trained at different levels, and a lot of which kinds of dogs I like and don't like are the ones that are trained poorly, I guess. So I like that the Superman gets that. All right, let's talk about the parents in the recording. So this is easily the biggest change to the Superman mythology. It's the idea that Jor-El and Lara sent Superman with a recording that said, "We love you so much, go to Earth, you'll have a great time." But then the recording was broken, and the secret thing that we find out later is in the recording is these people are idiots. Fair. You can rule them, have like lots of children, repopulate the Earth, whatever. Now, I don't think this is a problem. And if anything, I'd say very, very, very general spoilers for the show Invincible. I think this idea gets a lot less exciting in a world where Invincible exists because that's just what the Viltrumites are to some extent. And I guess in this, they're not even that, because they're not saying like, go conquer Earth because it's what we do. It seems like they're saying like, you could thrive there and have lots of babies and then continue the Kryptonian line or whatever. It's interesting because it's just, James Gunn loves a movie where the biological father is bad guy. And just, he comes up in, a lot of these Guardians of the Galaxies and such. I think it's an interesting angle. I don't think it feels like it really matters. I guess we don't sit with that one for a while. Like, we find that out after the kaiju fight, which I'm not positive about this. Feels like it's like halfway through the movie. It's the reason he's taken in jail, so like obviously it matters there. But as far as the public opinion on Superman, even the main characters like Guy Gardner's like, it's probably bullshit. It's probably like not here to enslave all of us. But, he turned himself in, so we can't help him. But I guess it's interesting that like we don't see the public opinion turn on Superman in the movie after that moment in any meaningful way. He is still helping the people, but we don't see people scared of him. We only really get that one scene. And I guess I just think that's interesting. because I think that, like, as an idea, that could be the whole movie. And Superman navigating that and navigating those relationships, right? Like, we never find out what, you know, Jimmy Olsen or these other characters, like, we don't see them lose faith in Superman. And, like, Lois obviously knows Superman isn't here to impregnate everybody and stuff. But I wish we got more of that, because this feels like a plot point that doesn't make an enormous difference in the grand scheme of the movie. Lex could arrest Superman for any reason. Like, sure, Lex needed a reason to do it. It was hard for Lex to do it. But, like, if Lex was able to, over the course of the movie, pass a law that it is illegal to be Superman, he could arrest him. And, like, Superman maybe would turn himself in, because that's just how Superman operates a lot of the time. And then Superman goes to jail. Movie the same. I guess that version of the story, it's a little bit less morally, it's just like, yeah, he shouldn't have turn himself in, but like, that is the law. But I don't know. I can see a version of this where we're thinking about this movie in, like, you know, a couple months, and we've kind of forgotten about this plot point, even though it is clearly the biggest departure from the usual Superman mythos. The other thing, which I brought up on the internet, is Superman obviously wouldn't know anything about Krypton. Anything besides what he's heard from these recordings, and I guess maybe what the robots could tell him if he didn't build them himself. But Supergirl traditionally was raised on Krypton, was sent out as a 16-year-old or whatever, and I forget what the explanation is, but like went through a black hole or got frozen in hypersleep or something, and came out younger. Like, so she should be older than Superman, but because of weird time shenanigans, she landed later than him and is still younger than him. Which means she knows Kryptonian stuff. Would she know? Because I believe sometimes she is sent to protect Clark. Which means if that's happening, she is seeing what the parents are saying. Or like she's getting the message from, you know, some of the parents. Now, I know they'll probably go with this Supergirl origin from Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Which is, I'm sure, somewhat similar to her original origin. I guess it's just weird because, like, hey, Supergirl, did you know about that? Did you know that the parents told him to, like, repopulate Krypton? And, like, you haven't been doing that, right, Supergirl? Why didn't you mention that to him? You don't have to, you know, tell him in public, but just, like, pull him aside and be like, hey, just in case this ever comes up, you should probably destroy that recording because it is bad and makes you look bad. Some people have theorized that's why Supergirl in this movie is drunk, is because she's dealing with the fact that she was kind of sent to take over Earth, and she doesn't want to do that. I think that's an angle that's interesting. But again, now I think we're getting into too many, like, this is an explanation of a thing that doesn't need to be explained in the context of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I like Millie Alcock. I liked her on that show Sirens, and I think she looks great. The Supergirl costume looks terrific. She sells it. I think it's an interesting choice to have her be drunk in this scene. Only because Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, the book that this is based on, like that this idea is based on, and that is going to be the next movie, in that book, spoilers for the first couple pages, she is on an alien planet getting drunk because it is her 21st birthday and she has to go to a planet with a red sun to get drunk. And then things, you know, get worse from there, and that kicks the plot into gear. That is not something she does frequently, it doesn't seem like. It seems like she's doing it because it's her birthday. Like, that's what people on Earth, especially in America, do on their birthday. And it's not because, like, she's an alcoholic. And the way that Superman describes it in this movie, like, he's like, oh, she loves to go to planets with red suns so she can get drunk. Like, if that's what's going on, Clark, talk to your cousin. Because I get it. It's similar to the movie, but different in a really big way. It changes the way her character works. What else? You have Mang Pa Kent. Also a very small part of the movie. We only really see him 3 times in the first call when he goes to the farm, and then in the clips at the end. I wouldn't have minded more of them. I don't know how you would do it because they didn't want this to be an origin, but I don't know. I think they felt real. They felt like real people, and they're easily the least movie starry that these characters have been in a while. Yeah, I think they were fine. Other ideas that I think are interesting. The idea of a super harem that Lex brings up. I think the word harem is a really fun word here. Like, it's an interesting visual. I wondered about this. So Clark seems like he is attractive, right? Like, Lois obviously is with him. Kat is kind of flirty with him a little bit. We don't really see too many other characters have, like, strong reactions to Clark. I feel like in this world, there would be a lot of people that would be, like, into Superman. Like, he would be a hunk. It's funny because in the movie we see him like, you know, being nice to the falafel cart guy and like hanging out with kids and stuff. But I feel like there would be kind of like in that scene in one of the Fast and Furious movies. I think it's Fast 8, where they have to recruit Hobbs, and he's at a soccer game. All the soccer moms are just sitting in the stands, just like drooling and like looking at him, and he's like, yeah, it's a big soccer town. I think that would be happening for Superman. My only reason I'm bringing this up is I think super harem would be very doable. I think super harem, there'd be some people that'd be like, oh hell yeah, that's a great idea. You know, good for them, I guess. Other ideas they're really quick. Mr. Handsome, super weird. Don't know what the hell that is. It's the thing that drives the little cart. That Lex owns one of them, or made him, or found him. I've seen people say he's a white Martian, or like he looks like a white Martian, but I also think I've seen James Gunn say that's not what he is. He's just Mr. Handsome, and that's great. He's no Baby Joey, but he's pretty funny, and it's cool that he's there. I hope he works at a job now, because like I would assume he's also kind of enslaved by Lex, and when he's freed, you know, maybe he can like get a food truck or something. I think that'd be fun if we saw that in Lanterns. Oh yeah, Peacemaker's in this movie. That's weird. We still haven't figured out exactly what he's doing, like what dimension he's from, and how that is going to figure into this universe. It'll be explained in Peacemaker Season 2. Overall, I think, you know, that was funny. It was funny to see him. So now let's talk about like the future of this universe. Okay, so we have a Superman movie that was successful. Next thing that's coming, Peacemaker. After that, Lanterns, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Clayface. Those are the only things that feel like they're actually definitely happening. And even Clayface at this point, I'd say, could derail for sure. Supergirl and Lanterns, I believe Lanterns just finished filming. So like those are definitely happening in 2026. I wonder if we get another Superman movie or if they do something else. I wonder if they do Superman and someone, Superman versus someone. I hope it's not Superman versus Batman. Don't do that. And it might even be too early for like World's Finest, but I wonder if they just go straight to Justice League. They do a Batman movie, they do maybe a Wonder Woman thing. Because that's how the Avengers worked. It was like Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man again, Thor, Captain America, Avengers. Like we make everybody gets a solo, and then and I don't think that needs to be the end game here, but I wonder if that is where they're gonna go, or if they do another Superman movie. If they do another Superman movie, I wonder where you go with him. I think you kind of, because we've dealt with so much terrestrial Superman stuff, you kind of have to send him to space, although that's kind of what Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is. And there are plenty of good comics. I don't personally think doing Superman versus the Authority or Superman versus the Elite or whatever Manchester Black's team is, which is kind of what my pitch was for a Superman movie, I don't think that would be that compelling now, because we just explained why Superman is needed and like why his old-fashioned heroism has value. So to challenge that right off the bat, it just feels like, yeah, we've seen that before. I'd like to go in a different direction with him. I hope they don't do Zod. I hope they don't do Kryptonians. I think the more Kryptonians you do, the more boring and kind of generic the universe gets. It's also extra weird because, like, now we don't really trust Jor-El, so what's the Zod of this universe like? Yeah, I think you have to do aliens. I think you could do a Warworld story. Warworld could come to Earth and Superman could, I don't know, maybe I'll make a pitch for this, but like have Warworld be something that like Mongol comes to Earth and maybe has captured other characters that we can now bring in. So like this is where Martian Manhunter's been. I don't know if this idea has been thrown out there by people or if this is based on a comic. I don't know. It feels like something that I've been talking about for a while. I'm thinking about for a while. I guess my Justice League 2 pitch was that, but with Despero. Despero has a team of superheroes. Maybe I'll figure that out. I don't know. Maybe I'll work that into these. If you know what, if I were honestly, I don't know if you could do Legion of Superheroes. I would love to see that. That's something I think would be really cool. And that's very Clark related. I don't know. I mean, we've covered so much Superman ground in this movie. I don't know who the next most interesting characters. They better not kill him. Don't Death of Superman him. And clones aren't interesting anymore. You can't do the Eradicator and Superboy. I mean, you could, but like, we've already done clones, so that's not as fun. Can't do Bizarro. What did Guardians of the Galaxy do? So Guardians of the Galaxy team assembles in 1 and 2. Okay, so it's James Gunn. It's gonna be something from the past, from a character's past. You'd figure Superman's past. Maybe General Zod, but different. I think maybe we'll get a General Zod who's not a bad guy, or is a bad guy, but not the way General Zod has been before. Maybe this General Zod has kind of given up on Krypton and he wants Clark to help him fight somebody or something like that. I don't know, but I do think it'll be that, because that's what James Gunn does. It's something from the character's past, and Krypton's the only thing in this character's past. I think you could do a Superman movie where he has formed the Justice League, where that's the beginning of it, and it's not the same one as before, and maybe we don't have Batman and some of the other guys yet, but like some of them. It'd be kind of cool. I mean, Superman could make the Authority. Like, that's how the Superman in the Authority book goes. He gets Midnighter, Apollo, Natasha Irons, Manchester Black. It's too early for that, though. Yeah, I don't think it should be Zod, but it will, because of the connection to Krypton. And there's just other Kryptonians that are evil. You know what? That's true, too. Brainiac could show up and be like, I'm here to protect you. I'm here to protect Krypton, and I'm here to make sure that you are safe. I was created by maybe Jor-El or something, and that is a problem, because then Brainiac gets out of hand and becomes like a super monster thing who's like trying to protect, like steal all the civilizations. Maybe you could maybe do that. Yeah, you'd have to. Brainiac would be involved with Krypton. He's not like secretly I'm your father, but he's like, I'm your kind of babysitter, I'm your uncle. I do think it'd be interesting. Like, it's tough because Superman has already kind of moved past his Kryptonian heritage, so it's not as interesting if one of them shows up. Yeah, I'm edging towards Brainiac now. I feel like it'll probably be Brainiac, maybe some hybrid of Zod and Brainiac. I don't know how that would work. I would like it if it was like Mongol or something different. And then let's talk about other characters. So Daily Planet spinoff, they better do it. They should definitely do it. You can call it Jimmy Olsen in the Daily Planet or whatever. You don't need to have Lois in it. She can be off doing some investigation or something, but you have all the other characters because they're all good. And then we can have some minor supervillains and DC ones. It doesn't have to be Superman villains, but like characters that are getting investigated. I don't know. That just, it seems like it could be very fun. Have Jimmy like taking potions and stuff and turn it into a big kaiju or whatever. Yeah, I'd like that. And then the Terrifics. So I'm thinking about this. I'm going to make a video about the Terrifics for sure. Because I think this is the pitch that is the most compelling to me. We have Mr. Terrific, and we have Metamorpho now. Mr. Terrific, dead on, perfect version of the comic Mr. Terrific. Metamorpho, whatever. We don't have a Phantom Girls, and we don't have a Plastic Man. Now, traditionally, in the comics, the Terrifics is a brand new thing, by the way. Some of these things, these teams are like 100 years old. This one's like, 10 years old. And the deal with it was, it's a parody of the Fantastic Four. And I guess parody may be too strong of a word, because it's not trying to make fun of the Fantastic Four. They're just really a pastiche of the Fantastic Four. They have a Doctor Doom, they have a Galactus, and the team makeup is similar, where you have a smart man, a stretchy guy, not the same as him, but a guy who tells a lot of jokes, a guy who is made of rocks and is sad, and then a woman who is kind of like ghostly and ethereal. And that is what Phantom Girl is. People probably know Plastic Man as like, yeah, the goofy shapeshifty one who can like turn into a spring and bounce around or whatever. He's dying to be played by someone like Andy Samberg or Ben Schwartz. Phantom Girl's a little trickier because she is a member of the Legion of Superheroes, but she's an alien who has the power to phase, but she is stuck in her phased form. And the pitch for the Terrifics book is that they all, because of whatever was happening in the Dark Knight's Metal crossover or whatever, are connected, like physically connected. Well, not physically, but like at a quantum level. So they have to stay together. And I think that's a fun pitch with the Mr. Terrific we have, who, has issues with family. Like, he hasn't brought him up yet, but like, wife died, very sad. And then he doesn't like working with these jokers. He has a problem with Guy Gardner. He would have such a problem with Plastic Man. So like, making a story where he has to hang around this goofy family, very good. The problem with a Terrifics, which you may be already kind of sensing, it's a lot like the Marvels, and I don't love that, because otherwise it's a really easy pitch. Like, it's superheroes, but they're all stuck together. It's like a road comedy where they like have to go and do all these crazy things, but oh my god, they're all, odd couples for each other. Like, they shouldn't hang out, and they hate each other, and then they eventually love each other. And I think you could still do that. Then in my head I was like, okay, well, what if instead of all being like tethered together by some sort of universal force, they are thrown into a place together, like a different dimension or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We've done that already too. Now, neither of those were enormous hits, so I think you could do them again, but I think you want to do something different. The other question is, do you bother with Phantom Girl, or do you just have Hawkgirl come and join the Terrifics? Maybe Guy Gardner goes and does his own thing, and Hawkgirl joins this team, because Hawkgirl and Metamorpho are kind of switched of the versions. Like, she is the tough one out of the two of them, it seems like, and he is perhaps the more sensitive of the two. So she can fill the Thing role, and he can fill potentially the Invisible Woman role in this Fantastic Four. And the only other characters you definitely need are Simon Stagg, Sapphire Stagg, and their butler, who is a prehistoric man, Java, I believe. And there's other characters they bump into other story. I just don't know what the pitch for it is. I think it could be fun. Maybe a time travel thing. I don't know, though. Why? You want a story that makes Mr. Terrific go crazy, basically. Like, you want to make the most irritating team possible. And I think you can get that with Metamorpho, and you can get that with Hawkgirl, who just doesn't give a shit. Like, she just wants to hang out and look at her phone. Fine. And then you can get that with a Plastic Man, who is Ben Schwartz, just really annoying, bouncing around, John Ralphio, basically. But then, how do you make that worse? Like, what villain do you pit them against? What problem do they have to solve? Because I think the three of them can happen upon Plastic Man. That's kind of how that happens in the comics, and he's like an egg or something. But yeah, like, where do they go? Why do they do it together? I don't know. The other thing you could do is you could do Strange Adventures from Mr. Terrific's point of view. That could be a Mr. Terrific spinoff, but I don't know. I feel like we have two Terrifics, and there's no way James Gunn is not planning on introducing Plastic Man soon. So I don't see why not just go for the Terrifics, but then what are they? Also, like, is Metamorpho going to be raising baby Joey? I don't want that. That's no fun for me. I feel like it's one of those ideas that, like, comics had, but then, like, we didn't really see too much Baby Joey in the future, I don't believe, because they knew that it probably wasn't the most interesting thing to do with him. Is multiverse, because that is one of the stories, is Mr. Terrific goes to a universe where his wife is Mr. Terrific, or Mrs. Terrific, and she has T-cubes, and it's like, oh no, I have a wife, but my wife is dead, but then that's Flashpoint. We already did that too. And a Fantastic Four parody or pastiche isn't that interesting, because we only done one Fantastic Four movie in a while, and it might not even be good, like, we'll see, but, like, yeah, I have trouble with that. What do you do with the Terrifics? Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, because we're getting to a point where, like, Marvel's done a lot of these stories already. DC's tried some of these already, so, like, if you're gonna pitch a movie like this, it has to be something new. The character has to be new. Like, I think Terrifics works as a comedy, where just he is really, really annoyed by Plastic Man. But then, like, what's the movie about? I don't know. The only other question is, how does this connect to Lanterns? Because it seems like Guy Gardner is going to be in Lanterns, and that's it. I imagine Guy Gardner will be in it. I don't think he's going to talk about any of the rest of the stuff. I doubt Superman will show up. But yeah, those are my big thoughts, my spoiler thoughts on Superman. I probably have other thoughts. This took a while to record these and to see it again and, like, get all my thoughts put together. I think this overall, it's going to be a really good movie for the future of these, like, characters. And, like, I think this movie, while flawed, is very fun, and that's really what you need. So it's good. And I think Baby Joey is cool. I wish I could have gotten the Baby Joey toy, but I can't. I'll have it eventually. And then everybody will go, what the hell's that? Because people have kind of forgotten what Baby Joey was. He's not the Baby Yoda that they wanted him to be. Or is he? He's better than Baby Yoda. I think he would kill Baby Yoda if he could. Anyway, Baby Joey's great. You know what else is great? Nebula. I would be surprised if you have not heard of Nebula by now. It is a subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of YouTubers created back years ago. Not that long ago, but, like, it's been around for a little while. The goal was we wanted an ecosystem where we could exist outside of the algorithm, so we wouldn't have to cater to views and stuff like that. We'd make the videos that we wanted to make. At the same time, we wanted to have space to make original projects with bigger budgets, and we have some really cool ones coming out. Obviously, there's stuff like Jet Lag, which is hugely popular, and I don't need to explain probably what jet lag is to you. There's also Abolish Everything, which I really enjoy. Patrick Willems has a short film coming out soon called The Dinner Plan. Maggie Mayfish has a series coming out soon called Amy's Dead End Dream House, which, from what I have seen, seems like a take on, like, a Pee-wee's Playhouse, one of those shows where, like, the furniture talks to you, but with a more contemporary twist. And I think Maggie and her team are really smart and funny. I cannot wait to see this show. And then one of the biggest things we have coming up is a show we're working on called Subliminal. It's an anthology. It's very dramatic in the vein of things like The Twilight Zone, but instead of being based around some funky science fiction concept or whatever, this is all just based on complicated human relationships. A bunch of cool YouTubers are writing and directing episodes of this. We have actual actors doing this work. This is going to be really exciting. And one of the episodes, one that is going to be directed by Patrick Willems, is written by me. The episode is called Power Trip. I, again, don't want to spoil it because just when it comes out, you watch it and you'll love it. This is really my first like Nebula original thing. So I'm very excited about it. I've been writing it for a little while. If you're like, why is some of the video frequency slowed down a little bit? But I'm done with it. So that's the best part. You know, I've written it. So there it is. It's there. So it is up to Patrick and our production team to put this episode together. I think it is going to be really cool. And you're going to be able to watch that exclusively on Nebula. You can also watch all of my videos early and ad-free, including Nando Cut videos, which go up maybe a couple hours before they go live on YouTube. But still, that's early. You're seeing it before anybody else. And a yearly subscription to Nebula is a steal already at $5 a month or $60 a year. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, name of the channel, you can get a year of Nebula for just $3 a month. It is a great deal. It's a great way to see all my videos. There's a bunch of other creators on Nebula who you definitely already like. And there's a bunch of others that we're bringing on as, you know, time goes on. Who knows when you're watching this video? Check out Nebula. There will be people that are not on there when I am recording it. And we have some pretty cool ones that I'm excited they're going to be part of Nebula. And we're always growing. So anyway, that is my pitch for Nebula. So watch my videos early and ad-free, and watch Subliminal, specifically my episode and all the other episodes, when they are released in the future. I do not know exactly when, but we're working on it right now. And I'm sure we will have more updates. So follow me on, you know, Twitter and all that stuff, on Nando V Movies, all over the internet, and you will see updates from me. That's all I got. Stay safe. See you next time.